Chapter 25. Noah kissed my nose for the billionth time. He smelled so good. I'll be back after my exams for Christmas. Not even a month away. It'll fly by. It better. I kissed him again. We were making up for weeks and weeks of missing out. Last night he'd come inside and we talked for a while longer about everything. We talked until we fell asleep on the couch, with me drifting off first. Noah's fingers running through my hair and his arms tucked tight around me. I could feel how much he loved me. How could I have ever doubted him or thought there was anybody else? My dad had woken us up around 8, not looking overly surprised to find Noah in the house when he'd come downstairs to make breakfast, and just said, "What do you kids want for breakfast?" "You'd better head back home soon, Noah. You'll have to leave for the airport in a while." Once Noah had left, I'd explained everything to my dad, who sighed and said, "Don't get me wrong. I like Noah. He's a good, smart kid, and I know you were in love with him, but I did like Levi." Now we stood on the Flynn's driveway, but this didn't feel as bad as it had in the summer when he'd left for college. His fingers ran absently down and ran up and down my arm, and I tried to memorize every freckle on his face. He'd shaved this morning, his cheeks smooth under my hand. God, I'd missed him so much. Amanda came out of the house then and grinned at us. "You see, Noah, I told you that you'd work things out." I didn't do that in British. Alright, To me, she said, "And I'm so glad that you did. He was miserable without you. He was always moping around. It was making the rest of us feel shitty, too. I'm not even joking." I laughed, breaking away from Noah for a moment to face Amanda. "I'm really sorry if I was horrible to you when you got here." She waved a hand, a silver ring on her middle finger catching the light, and beamed at me. "Don't mention it. Have done the same in your place, but you weren't horrible, or rude, or anything." Then, before I could reply, she threw her arms around me and said, "Ooh, it was so great to meet you." "You too," I said, surprised to find I really meant it as I hugged her back. Then she went back to the house, where we could hear her thanking June again for having her to stay and making her feel so welcome, and Noah kissed the side of my head, pulling me back into his side. "I'll call you later when I'm back at the dorms." "Okay. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Maybe I can come out to Boston to see you after Christmas. Maybe you could look at some colleges out there," he said. Even though his tone was playful, his eyes were serious, hopeful. I kissed him by way of reply, rising up on my tiptoes and clutching at the front of his jacket. "All right, lovebirds, break it up." "That plane will leave without you," Matthew announced, clapping his hands and shutting the trunk of the car. Amanda came out of the house with her oversized purse and said a last thank you to June, and Noah gave me one more kiss. Lee stood next to me as we waved them off, and it felt weirdly like it had in the summer, when we'd watched Noah's plane take off. But it felt better than that, more peaceful, more comfortable. This time we knew exactly what we were in for with the long-distance thing, and we were determined to make it work. Lee sighed, slinging an arm around my shoulders. "I still can't believe you made out with Levi. I'll tell everyone I know what a snotty mess you were over Marley and me if you breathe a word to anyone. And don't forget about the bra story either. I'll tell your buddies on the football team too." Lee nudged me in the shoulder. Yeah, don't worry, I'm not telling. That doesn't mean I don't still find it hilarious. It's not funny, God. It really kind of is. When I came up with Levi in the parking lot on Monday morning, he didn't bring up our kiss at all. He just grinned at me knowingly and said, I see you've changed the relation status again. I have. Tell all. And he sounded so genuinely interested, so genuinely happy for me. I relaxed. I'd been worried about seeing him again, even if things were normal between us over text, but everything really was exactly like it had been before. Only now I wasn't wondering about kissing him, or wondering if we had any chemistry, or if I wanted to date him. I knew for sure where my heart lay now. So I told him all about how Noah had come by in the middle of the night, how cut up he was about the breakup, how we'd cleared the air. I'm really happy for you, Levi said, and he genuinely was. I could tell by his smile. But don't look now. I think there are a couple of girls heading our way who want you to spill the beans too. I looked around to see the girls who were walking toward us. Levi had ducked away from my side by the time the girls reached me. Lisa was grinning almost manically, and Rachel grabbed my hand. We want to hear everything. I was going to be in for a very long morning, but I wasn't the only one with good news. Dixon couldn't stop smiling. He'd had this stupid grin on his face all day long, but I didn't get the chance to ask him about it until we all sat down for lunch. Oh, come on, I said, throwing a fry at him. You can't be that happy for me that things worked out with Noah. Spill. Dixon blushed, bright pink, and then he bit his lip. Well, it's, I mean, it's no big deal, but it kind of is, though. Like, Jesus Christ, at this rate, we still won't know by Christmas. Come on, man, spit it out. Warren laughed, and Dixon seemed to be steeling himself for something. He looked all serious for a second before his face split into another huge smile. Danny asked me to be his boyfriend. You know, officially. So, yeah. Oh my God, I said. No way, said Rachel. I didn't realize you two were much of a thing, said Warren, while Ollie started belting out, Love is in the air, and Lee and Lisa pitched in with do, do, do. Dixon shrugged, looking down, still with that big, goofy smile on his face. I shared a look with Rachel, and we both had to bite back giggles. I didn't think any of us had ever seen Dixon looking so giddy. Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't want to make a big thing of it, but we've been on a few dates, and I really like him. That's so great, man, Lee chimed in, their sing-song done now. Yeah, we are really happy for you, said Levi. As long as we are sharing good news, said Cam. I finally sent off my college applications. I know it's not exactly on the same scale, but I finally hauled ass and did it. Geez, what's with all the good karma everywhere? Warren laughed. And when is it coming my way? A week before school let out for Christmas vacation, I was hanging out with Levi. We were baking cookies with Becca. They were supposed to be for the bake sale at her school tomorrow, but she kept snaking them almost as fast as we could make them. Then his mom had called to ask if we could bake extra so she could take them into work. As I helped Becca press the gingerbread men cookie cutter into the mixture, and Levi whipped up another batch, the front door opened and closed. Hey, kids, Levi's dad called. Levi's dad had been in and out of hospital appointments for the last month, but he was getting better. Levi kept telling me some days were good, some days not so good. He was going to be fine. And that was the important thing. Something smells good, his voice boomed again, and Becca jumped down from her seat to go and hug her dad. Mr. Monroe was tall, and he had the look of someone who used to be pretty well built, but had lost a lot of weight and muscle in a short span of time. His face was thin, and so was his hair. He was just wearing jeans and a plain blue t-shirt, and when he smiled he looked like Levi. "Hey, sweetie pie," he said, hugging Becca back. He stood up, smiling at us. "All right, Levi? Elle? How was school?" "Oh, sure," Levi deadpanned. "Best days of our lives, you know?" Becca came back over to sit next to me, taking the cookie cutter back out of my hands. "Al's helping us bake." "Well, I'm not doing much actual baking," I said. "I'm a disaster in the kitchen." "She really is," Levi said. I knew he was thinking about the time I'd tried to cook lasagna a few weeks back, just after Thanksgiving, and the result had been ineatable mush that probably would have given us food poisoning if we'd eaten it. My dad had ordered takeout instead. Noah had laughed for 5 minutes solid when I'd FaceTimed him to show off the disaster of my cooking. Mr. Monroe picked up one of the gingerbread men from an open Tupperware box. The cookie snapped as he bit the head off. He said, mouth full. Swallowing, he went on. "Don't suppose you could make me some these for my support group?" To me, he said, "My doctor and wife insist I go to these support groups for people in remission. Waste of a Monday evening, if you ask me. I keep telling them I don't need to go." "Oh, right, but some Christmas cookies should make it a bit better, though, right?" He smiled again. "Christmas cookies make everything better." "Sure. What's a few dozen more?" Levi sighed melodramatically, and then the oven timer went off for the 6th or 7th time that afternoon. I just laughed, and Becca ate another cookie when she thought none of us were looking. "I'm sorry about my dad," Levi said later when we were playing video games in his room. We both had studying to do, which we'd said we would do after we'd baked the cookies, but neither of us felt like memorizing facts. If he made things awkward or anything, I think his support group has this thing about not making cancer taboo, so they can all talk about it more. It's okay, really. It wasn't awkward. Levi's relief was palpable. "You still haven't told the other guys, have you?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "I just don't see the point." "Maybe you need to go to these support groups," I said, but not in a mean way. "None of the guys are going to look at you differently or anything, I swear. They'd understand. Like when Dixon came out, you know? Everyone just kind of acknowledged it and carried on. It doesn't change anything." He mumbled in response, so I didn't push the issue. But a couple minutes later, Levi sighed, paused the game, and said to me in a taut and kind of angry voice, "I just find it kind of hard to deal with. So like the fewer people asking how he is all the time, the better I cope. It used to be like that in my old school, and it just pissed me off." I shrugged. "It's your choice. But even if you don't want to tell the other guys, you know you can talk to me about it, right? If it's ever like getting you down or whatever." "Yeah," he said softly. "Yeah, I know." We carried on playing the video game and didn't bring it up again. But he did say, "Elle, I'm glad we are still friends, even after I used you to try to get over my boyfriend." We caught each other's eye, and Levi grinned. I was so damn glad he wasn't holding it against me. At least I've stopped getting nasty looks in the hallways from the girls who have a crush on you, now that I'm back with Noah." He looked way too pleased with himself, hearing about girls having crushes on him, but I just rolled my eyes and unpaused the game. The next day at school, Levi told the guys about his dad, and, just like I predicted, they didn't look at him any differently. Just told him that if he ever needed to take his mind off things, they were always up for a few beers and pizza, or a game of football in the park. "See?" I said to Levi, smiling smugly. "I told you. Now who's the Ravenclaw?" He shot back in such a hauntingly teasing tone. I had to laugh. "If only you could predict what questions will come up with the biology final, that'd be great. I bet they'll ask what mitochondria are, or our bio teacher had been relentlessly embedding the definition into our heads for the last few months. I swore I still know it when I was 50. Remind me." I rolled my eyes laughing, and Levi cracked up too. Maybe he would have been the kind of guy I would have dated if things had ended up different between me and Noah. If Noah hadn't been so determined to see me and fix things. Maybe if Thanksgiving had gone differently, I would have been with Levi. I don't imagine we would have ever lasted long as a couple. I needed that spark, that passion that I had with Noah. It just wasn't there with Levi. We were way better off as friends. I was just grateful that he seemed to be on the same page. And then I started thinking, even with finals looming over my head, and the ever-present wait for a response to my college applications, the rest of the school year would be okay. I'd hit my rock bottom. The only way I was going was up.